Good morning, good afternoon, good night, everyone. How's everyone today? And welcome again to the Strategy Factory. I'm here today with Mr. Nicolas Tessier, or Tessier. Nico, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Nico, I usually start when I interview people, I start in the same way, and that's asking my guests, who is Nico Tessier?
So Nico Tessier, that's me. Same as you, I live in Sydney. I'm originally from France. I've been in Australia for 12 years now. I'm the father of one. I work for a company called CBRE, which is a huge global real estate corporate company. Which for me is a little bit like surprising because my background is very different. I come from a creative background, so I work with a lot of experiential marketing agencies, digital agencies, and then I'm also like I've always have a startup on the side. So even though I'm working in a big corporate at the moment, I'm also an entrepreneur. So I've been working a lot in creative agencies and then moving to the big corporate world for the first time when one of my clients approached me. It's a company called Telstra. They're the biggest telco in Australia. And my job was to redesign and reinvent their retail model and their retail ecosystem and redesigning what we were calling at the time the store of the future, but it's the store of today. It's the store of the present. I see it's being rolled out as we speak. So black first stint in the corporate world, then went back to being a consultant for a little while and started at CBRE 18 months ago.
Awesome. As I was telling you before we started recording, I'm super excited about this talk. We had some preliminary chats where we kind of discussed what we were going to talk about today, and there's a lot of wonderful content coming our way, talking about the real estate industry, but also comparing the real estate industry to the retail industry, and also the future of work. So I'm super excited. And the first thing that I want to talk about is this idea about the real estate industry and how it has changed over the past 10 years, even before COVID. When I think about the real estate industry, maybe in the good old times, it was just about who could list the best property and then who could lease the best property. And the differentiation was mostly in the service they provided. How has that changed? And what are the trends that we've seen in the last few years?
So first, I have to be transparent. Like, as I was saying, I've started at CBRE 18 months ago. And before that, I didn't know nothing about real estate. As I was telling you, it's almost by accident. And the reason why I'm at CBRE is more because I'm a designer than because I'm an expert in the domain. Obviously, I have learned a lot in the past 18 months, doing my own research, chatting with a lot of clients, trying to find solutions to big problems. So I think I'm probably better equipped to talk to you about what's changing at the moment rather than how it was 10 years ago, because I don't know that much. Since COVID, and I think COVID has just accelerated some big trends that were happening not only in real estate, but in general. Digitization is a big topic. So like obviously it changes the way people interact with physical space. So how do you connect physical and digital, but also the role of people within the physical space and how digitization changed the connection between people within an environment. And then in the work and corporate real estate where people come to work, the role of the space was changing and the way people were interacting with those spaces was changing as well because of what I call transference. I'm used to go from A to B with a cab just in one click using Uber. I'm expecting everything else in my life to be one click away. So if I want something, I should just click one thing and it should happen to me. So in the workplace, it's kind of the same. Getting in, going out, ordering food, moving around, accessing people, accessing space, everything was kind of being transformed and digitization was transforming all of that. So that was happening. And then there was also that big notion of people wanting freedom from location, freedom from time, being able to be more agile in the way they work. So that was happening before COVID. What COVID did, and that's very interesting, I had never experienced anything like that before. I mean, COVID accelerated everything. Companies knew that they had to digitize themselves to enable agile work, but they were doing it the normal way, which normally takes between 2, 3, 4, 5 years for an organization to transform itself. And that's the normal pace. But because of COVID, it had to happen in a week. Like 1 week before, everybody was coming to work. 1 week later, everybody had to have access to everything from home. So that transformation has happened very quickly, but it's been very organic and reactive. Now is the time for us to think about it, to pause and think about, okay, what is tomorrow going to be about? People will probably not come back to work 5 days a week as they used to. So now is the time for us to really be strategic in the way we want to reconsider everything and build the new model and a new norm that's going to be more sustainable and more long-term. So that's kind of what's happening at the moment. And it has big impact on the two types of clients that I'm working with at the moment. One type of client is what we call occupiers. They are like the big companies that you can think about. I'm working with some of the biggest tech companies in the US, in the Silicon Valley. I'm working with like the top 100 company on the planet and how they rethink about their employee experience. But I'm also working with building owners. What is the role of the physical space? How do you make sure that you stay relevant and that your business stay flourishing despite the fact that people might not come back 5 days a week? How can you turn that something that looks like a threat for your business into an opportunity? That's some of the things that we're working on at the moment.
That's super exciting, and I'm super keen on learning what do you think is going to happen, or where is it shaping up to. The first time that we talked, you talked about the big forces. You mentioned this phrase, the big forces that are transforming the work of the future. This idea of being fully connected and mixturing this physical and this virtual world, the access to information, sustainability. Can you tell us and expand a little bit over these concepts?
So, and it's interesting, I actually forgot to talk about sustainability, and I'm glad you put that on the table. And I know we spoke about it in our preliminary discussion. Sustainability is pretty much across everything, like digitization was before. It's not something that's a nice to have. It's like something that we have to do for the human species to stay alive, but also because for your business to be better tomorrow, you would have to take that into consideration. And now it's proven that, if you're doing well for your community and the planet, your business is doing well as well, which was very much disconnected before. And so that's one big force. And as an example, in the real estate world, if your building is not sustainable, you will probably not attract the same type of tenants. You will probably actually lose some of your existing tenants. So it's actually not good for your business. You will lose money because your consumption is going to be higher. You lose on every front. So that topic is a big force that is actually drastically changing like everything. It's also true in the way people commute. Like, is it better for a company to have a head office where everybody goes every day, or is it better to have a centralized place and send satellites offices because it's better for their employees? Their commuting is going to be more interesting. It's going to be not as long, and it's good for the planet as well because there will be less commute. So everything is connected, and those forces cannot be taken in isolation. And this is something that I'm passionate about and that I'm working on at the moment. It's really trying to get my clients and partner to understand that you need to take everything into consideration and build a new norm rather than trying to just transform and digitize, transform and be sustainable, transform and look after health and well-being. It would be much easier if it was working this way, but it's not. And that's why what I'm talking about at the moment is really like putting the end user at the center. And I know it's nothing new because it's been there for a long time, but the way we're doing it is looking at the different experiences that an employee needs to connect with, whether it's transport, whether it's food, whether it's health and well-being, whether it's community management, or obviously like doing work and collaboration. And what are the interfaces for that employee to get access to those services, whether it's a human interface and hospitality, whether it's a digital interface through an app, through a web, through connected objects, or whether it's the physical interface. Do I go to a physical place And how can we build that ecosystem so that it's on the end user to decide what's work best for them, regardless of their location. So whether I would decide to work from home for a co-working space, from the office, or from a cafe or the lounge of an airport, maybe one day we can go back to an airport. But making sure that the same services are going to be available regardless of the location, and it's on the end user to make that decision. This is
a fabulous kind of, I think, opening door to something that has been resonating with me lately. I'm just going to throw it out there, and maybe it's more of a discussion than something that you have figured out. But how do you feel, or what do you think about all of these new things coming up, and how distributed the workforces are being now? As you said, working remotely, working maybe on satellite hubs, working on the headquarters, working on the lounge of an airport. When it comes to the connection with the culture, because I'm guessing one of the biggest challenges these companies that you work with have is, how can we build the system so that it feels that you're working at your fullest potential, regardless of where you are? But at the same time, how do you avoid the struggle of making it feel like it's just you? And I'm guessing that is also part of the systems. But one of the things that I've seen throughout the pandemic is how companies have gone full remote without being ready to go full remote. And that has a huge impact in the culture, in the way that people work, in the way that people connect with their peers, with their other workmates. So what do you think about this?
So First, I don't have the answer, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what the future is going to be about, but we do have elements that can help us either make assumption or actually build the future that we want, because we are in this position, and that's a very good position to be in. So, some companies have been born remote. There are companies that actually have designed their entire, not only ecosystem, but the way of working, their policies, their work experience, all like their DNA is about remote. And those companies are doing really well. What's happening in the moment is that companies that have told their employee that they could work from anywhere and they were not obliged to come back to work, they're looking at those companies to try to replicate some of those things. And I think it's interesting, but they also have to build their own way of working, because they have their own culture, because they have history, because they have different types of people. What we also have to take into consideration is that not every role can be performed remotely with the same efficiency. There's a ton of research on that by McKinsey, actually, that are showing that different roles will be more suitable for different location and different setup. A developer will probably be working fully remotely in a much easier way than someone that is working in retail. If you have to go to a retail store to actually open the store, you have to be physically present. And we keep thinking about people working from an office because that's what we're used to. But there are people working in factories. There are people working on the street. There are people working in building sites. So work is actually big. I think, if I'm not wrong, please double check that number, but I think that McKinsey is saying that only 22% of the jobs can be performed more than 2 days a week outside of the head office without losing productivity.
Oh,
so
that's very interesting.
It is interesting. And I don't have any opinion as to, is it better to work from home or from the office? It's anybody's choice, and it's every organization to make those big decisions. But the same way as when I was in retail, I was hearing a lot about, people should buy online or people should buy in a store. It's much more complex. And to provide the best outcome, and in my experience in retail, it's like you have to offer the platform and let the end user decide. And normally people make good decisions and they know what's good for them. And if every opportunity is designed in a way that's good, then normally you should be in a better position to perform what you have to perform.
That's great. No, that's wonderful. And I think you yourself opened the door for my next question, which is the comparison between the retail industry and what we see now with the workforce, with the real estate, but more about the workforce and the way that we work. And again, the first time that we talked, you mentioned something about this connection and how the workforce is now going through the same transformation that the retail industry did 10 years ago, when it was all physical and it started to be a bit more of a hybrid, and now it's full online, but people still sometimes want to go, or not sometimes, a lot of times. That's why shopping centers are still packed with people, um, to see and to feel and to touch the products that they want to buy. So you have obviously a vast experience in the retail industry. So what happened in the retail industry, if you have a little bit more detail to share with us? And then what were the expectations of the consumer? And as you said now, what are the expectations now?
So yeah, I can only share my experience. And I was one of the, when I was hired by Telstra to redesign the retail experience of the future, I was thinking that, yeah, let's put everything online and let's design a Telstra store that looks like an Apple store and it's going to be easy. That it doesn't work this way. Actually, different products actually are being bought different ways. So you really have to adapt to your consumer behavior. And instead of looking at your channel, what retail has done very well in the last 10 years, but I wouldn't say that the transition is finished. But they went from an addition of channels into what's called omni-channel, where once again the shopper is at the center, and then you make sure that the shop, like every channel, is interconnected, and the shopper can buy from anywhere all the time. And from channel in retail, I can talk about a store. This is something that people are used to. I can talk about an e-commerce platform, whether it's web or whether it's mobile. You can talk about social network. Nowadays, you can buy on Instagram, you can buy on Facebook, you can buy on any social network. You can buy on a store that's not your store, thanks to eBay, so there's so many different platforms and so many different ways people can buy that you have to actually, and retail has built an ecosystem and had to digitize itself so that their products were available to anyone everywhere. But also something that, and that's something you can replicate with work, obviously. Like an employee should be able to have access to all those places and ways of working, and all of them should be interconnected. Another thing, which is the notion of having a centralized like icon store, like think about Nike and their store in the Fifth Avenue. It doesn't mean that they don't have stores everywhere else. But the one that is in the Fifth Avenue, this is their temple. This is where you go if you want a really deep experience. This is where they build their Nike brand. And as a consumer, you can try the product in the best context, and you can have the best experience, and digitization and everything is around. That said, sometimes if I just want a pair of sneakers, like right here, right now, I'm happy that I have a Nike store that's just like, I don't know, like 5 minutes away from where I live, because that's instant gratification and I want my shoes now. Or if I want convenience, I'm very happy that I can buy them online, because maybe they're going to arrive next week. I don't need them right now, but I know exactly which one I want, and I don't want to be paying more than what I should be paying. So different products at different moments will have different needs, and it's good that Nike has been doing an amazing job making everything possible, and every experience is good. And this is what I think when you think about a company having their head office being their temple, this is where you have deep connection with the brand, with your colleagues, with the culture, where everything is amazing. That's the role of the head office, but nothing is stopping an organization from having a network of co-working spaces like that are more agile, but it's still places where you can meet with people and have some sort of like connection. And then also you have your home, and you have the cafe, and you have everything. And now the digital technology enables us to have access to collaboration tools regardless of the location. So there's quite a lot of similarities. I think that retail is probably a few years ahead from a digitization and omni-channel point of view. But I'm telling you that topic is pretty hot at the moment in the real estate industry and in the workplace industry, and some people are thinking like that already.
It's a great comparison, and I mean, as you were talking, I was really matching one thing with another. Especially the experience of buying in retail. Obviously, sometimes you don't even think what's behind your purchase decision. When you buy something, you buy it because that's the first thing that came to mind. But maybe already in the back of your mind, it was you were putting convenience on top of the full experience. I don't remember when was the last time that I actually went to, I don't know, I love brands like Patagonia, for example. And I don't know when was the last time that I actually went to a Patagonia store. I buy online, but now that you were saying, it's like, oh, I really missed that idea of going there and feeling like someone's there and they're talking to me and they're telling me everything about where, you know, the design of the clothing and where was it sourced from, and seeing the wood and seeing the sustainable brand in flesh and bone, and not just in an e-commerce store. And I'm pretty sure that, like, I mean, in the completely opposite side from me, there's people that they only go to the store because if they're going to pay a premium price for a piece of clothing, or a fair amount of money for a piece of clothing, they want to make sure they get the best possible experience. So
and same as at work, the path to purchase in the retail world is pretty long. I mean, it can be long and short depending on the product, but retail and shopping is not only about the transaction. There's the research of the products, there's a consultation with someone in the store, with your peers. And so in work it's the same, you know, like not every task is about delivering something. There's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of collaboration moments. Now, it's not every day that you have to present a deck that's finished and finalized. And before you get there, and I present decks, that's what I do, but some people build products, some people, not every day, it's just the end. You have all the work to get there, program, projects, everything is pretty long. So thinking about the path to purchase and the different touch points and mindset and behavior within that ecosystem, it's quite similar. There's a big difference though, and I don't want people to think that retail and workplace is the same, because it's not. There's a big difference. You as the boss can tell your employee what you want them to do because you're paying them for that. In retail, it's not the case. And I'm talking very strongly on purpose. And I know it's complex, but there are policies, there are systems that make things very different. But I really thought that and I still think that it's interesting to talk about the similarities, because when you don't know what tomorrow is going to be like, it's good to learn from other market or other things that make you feel that it can inform you at what tomorrow could be like.
That's great. That's great. And I think kind of the next natural follow-up to this is, what do you think then are the strategies to put in place or to build the workplace of the future? Because as you said, it's not the same for every company. It's not the same for every industry. What are the things that you need to bear in mind, and the strategies to decide what is the best way moving forward?
And so I will respond with once again, my expertise, and my expertise is in employee experience. I don't have much expertise in policies, in, you know, like the way you reward people, the way you build, you know, salaries and stuff. So I don't want people to think that I'm an expert in HR. But from an experience point of view, I can see 3 layers. And very often people start from the bottom layer. And I think you need to start from the top. So the top is about your brand purpose and value and missions. So how do you translate that into your employee experience? Defining your employee experience strategy. What do you want to achieve? How do you want people to think, feel, and behave within your organization and connect? So that's the top. And then you've got what I call the service design. How do you translate that strategy into journeys, user journeys with different types of employees with different needs? How does that work? And once you have that, you normally come up with problems that you need to solve with the bottom solution. How do you need to build your interfaces? And that's the 3 interfaces that I was talking about before, which is technology, place, and people. And you need to build this technology to support the experience that you want to provide. And that experience needs to support the employee big goal. So you can do it in 2 ways, and you can start from the bottom and do some testing. But if you've got the bottom that's disconnected from the top, you probably take a lot of risk of failure. And I know it's very easy to say, let's put the app and let's see how people use the app. But normally when you do that, you're going to not get a lot of adoption. Not because the app is not good, but it's not necessarily been designed the right way for the specific problem. So then you're going to put marketing. Let's put marketing out so that people use the app. That's normally not a very good sign if you have to do that kind of thing. So I like to do it. I like not that I like the top-down approach. I like the two approach are interesting, but you always have to navigate and you have to be clear in at each level. But you have to. This is my opinion. That's the way I think, and the way I'm working at the moment. It might change, and obviously we need to stay agile and change. But that's the way I would recommend you do it today.
The goal, I guess, is to get that seamless experience, right? Like regardless of where you are and what you're doing, how can you feel connected and at the same time engaged? And if you're not pushing the right apps or the right systems, then that experience might be altered. So no, that's fabulous. And I mean, I know that you cannot share who you're working with, but do you know of any companies that are already doing something like this, and what are the systems that are working for them, or something, I don't know, something fun that you know that already is put in place? Maybe you don't need to name the company, but something that works very well that maybe it's ahead of what we're thinking of right now.
Without naming anyone, but yeah, at the moment we're in the west coast of the US and in some part of Asia. Some companies are really advanced in Asia, but for that example, I'm going to use a company that's one of the big tech company that you can imagine in the Silicon Valley. They are letting their employees actually decide if they want to come back to the office or not. And one of the things we're doing for them is actually trying to connect so the big pillar of experiences that are very important, and I think when you cover them, you cover 90% of the needs, are like transport, food and beverage, health and well-being, and community engagement. The thing is that once again, very often people are looking at them in isolation. Oh, I want a digital gym. I want all of that. So what we're doing at the moment that I think is very interesting, but also very hard, is like, how do you build something that connects the transportation and health and well-being? We're going to nudge you to actually make transport decision that's good for you. Do you think it's better for you to, I don't know, ride a bike rather than taking the public transport? If you think that public transport is more convenient, how about you stop one train station before and then you walk the last 5 minutes so you arrive in a better mindset when you get into the office, or the other way around when you come back to work? So how can we actually build the health and well-being program that's supposed to be mainly driven by fitness and nutrition, and how do you connect that with actually the food and beverage, and how do you connect that with transportation? And it's very hard because the systems we're using and the partner we're using in those spaces don't necessarily talk to each other. So the data, the system is not ready yet, but by working on it, and we're doing a lot of experiences and small prototype at the moment, but really connecting those dots instead of looking at them in isolation is something that I think is very interesting and is going to drive a lot of value in the future. We're still in the prototyping phase at the moment, but that's something I'm quite interested in.
That is fabulous. Can you repeat those 4 pillars? Transport, health
and well-being, food and beverage, and community engagement, which connects a little bit everything, but it's like, yeah, how do you connect with your peers or peers outside of your organization, and how does that affect your personal well-being, and how do you connect with, I don't know, culture and events and content? These are the things we're working on.
That is great. I mean, we are just to share with everyone, by the time that we're recording this, we are in lockdown here in Sydney. And obviously being in lockdown means that you reduce completely many things in your life. One of it is the connection with your teams. Obviously you don't see them on the office, or even if you were not going regularly to the office and you were just going 1 or 2 days a week, you still had that engagement. And one of the challenges that we're doing now is that we're doing a step count. So we've paired up in teams of 2, and we're all kind of competing against each other. And it's a way of mixing the culture with health and well-being. So the couple that gets the most step counts in the next 2 weeks, with a limit, because we have a few others that live in the US, for example, they don't have limitations, so they can just go ahead and walk forever. We have quite tough restrictions here, but like those that achieve a certain point will obviously then get rewarded. But it's more about building that community and building that commitment to doing so because someone is watching you or because you also owe yourself to your partner. So I can't wait to see all of these things, how they come together, and where does it actually land. No, it's fabulous. And
on that note, very quickly, but we do have a partner. They're about to launch their product. They're in the UK. They're an amazing health and well-being. It's mobile based, but they would actually like organize those challenges, but also saying, oh, you've been walking that much today, I recommend you go to that restaurant and order that type of food because this is good for you, because we also know that you've only slept that many hours. So that, yeah, very much it's based on artificial intelligence, very personalized, and it's been built by people who used to work in the gaming industry and in the gambling industry, so they know a thing or two about how to nudge people with gamification. So there's amazing stuff being built at the moment that we can leverage. The question is, how do you make that work with your company and your objectives in your organization? Everybody have different goals.
Absolutely. And I mean, you kind of touched upon the challenges, but what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges for different industries and different companies to get to this point? Obviously, those that are in the, go for it.
Yeah, as usual. I mean, I've been doing innovation for quite a while in big organizations. There's a concept that I'm not going to describe too much about, but that's called actually it's very timely. It's called the corporate immune system. An organization to function has an immune system. This is the day-to-day organization, and everything new is a virus that the company wants to fight because it's going to potentially disrupt the way the organization makes money and function. And so getting the industry to understand the need, the opportunity, but also not to jump straight into solution mode, but really think about how best to find those solutions and take the time to actually make it properly, is probably going to be, as very often, the biggest challenge that you find when everything new is not only possible, but is important and necessary. So that notion of understanding and culture, and not getting all of a sudden, you know, the immune system to come and work very well, which we would love to happen in our body right now, but in an organization, this is very often something that is stopping the new from coming smarter and faster, and in a way that's good for the company and the society around it.
That's awesome. So we're getting kind of to the end. It's been already like 30 minutes, and it felt like 5. But I want to talk. I want to link these two things. I mean, we talked about the real estate industry a little bit, and we talked about obviously the future of the workplace. Now, if we combine them both, we get an outcome, which is how are cities going to look like in the near future? So what do you think is going to be the change? Obviously, we've been seeing trends lately, but what do you think is going to be now after COVID is kind of finished, the trends in the way that cities are going to be reshaping?
So once again, no crystal ball, but my opinion, I'm looking a lot at the circular economy and how, you know, like micro communities, interconnection of micro communities where you have pretty much everything sorted in one smaller place, so that there's less energy lost in the day-to-day operations. I'm very interested in the 15-minute city where everything is 15 minutes away from where you are. Which means that you can walk, you don't need as much, you know, like once again, energy to be as efficient. And that's why I'm seeing, you know, especially in the workplace, I wouldn't be surprised if all the amazing co-working space that we have been flourishing in the city center will actually move away from the city center, because city center will probably be where you're going to have your temple, but your co-working space will probably, hopefully, be closer to where people live, not where people work. And another trend is probably also, and that's something that I've just started touching recently at CBRE, because I'm lucky enough that CBRE is involved in pretty much everything, is like, how do you going to reconnect work, shop, and live? either it's physically or digitally, or but that notion of reconnecting the three things that were very separated. I don't know if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, and people will have their own opinion, but having those micro communities where you can work and buy and live and connect in the same place, I think is probably what's that plus circular economy is probably gonna drive some reshaping the city of the future. But once again, it's my opinion, and I don't know what tomorrow is going to be like.
No, that's what I mean. That's what our conversation is. It's not about opinions unless we have the hard facts. But it's more. I mean, you are in the industry. You get to see or to feel, to get a grip of where we're going. And this is a very personal question, which is, what is going to happen with all of these micro apartments in the middle of the city, like 35 square meter apartments? Because obviously, as we move away, we look for more space. We now need in our homes a bigger space to actually work and sleep and kind of spend the time. Before, a lot of people were downsizing because they weren't at home a lot of time. They were just working, and now work, or a lot of work, is going back to home. So what's going to happen with these small units? So what do you think, obviously?
What could happen? It's a very good question. Like, it's counterintuitive, but at the moment, and believe me or not, and CBRE have just released the research on that, and maybe they're a bit skewed because they're CBRE, but especially in APAC, organizations are looking for more workplace, not less. Okay. Yeah, that's counterintuitive, right? That's because you will need more space between people, and also collaborative space. You need more square meter to do something. So, and getting people together after people being away from each other for such a long time is something that people are dying for. So that's one thing. It's sometimes I get surprised by those numbers. I thought people reduce, their workplace by 30%, and actually it was not very politically correct to say that within CBRE, because people are scared in that industry that it's where it's going. So that is one thing. First, like, things are surprising. Second, we are already looking now, not in the residential world, but in the workplace. What do we do with unused spaces? And I'm telling you, there's already amazing ideas, like mindfulness rooms, fitness rooms, place where people just connect differently through VR. There's so many ideas. We don't have enough ideas to actually come up with how we can repurpose unused spaces. Even like little food corner that people can order from. There's so many great things that you can do with space. And I know it feels like we're going to have too much space, but I mean, there's more and more human beings on that planet, and I don't think we have enough space. So I'm not really concerned. I think that the purpose of those spaces is probably going to change. But there's great brains and amazing creative people coming up with amazing ideas. So I'm more looking forward to what they're going to come up with, rather than being concerned about, there will be a new place in CBDs. I'd be surprised if it was happening. However, I wouldn't be surprised if our CBDs were looking already quite different in 5 years' time than they're looking today, but not in a bad way, in a good way.
Okay, that's super exciting. Oh, now I'm excited to go back to the office.
As long as I can decide when.
Yeah.
I can go back to the office, and how often. I love going to the office when I need to.
Oh, yeah, it's great. No, it's great. I miss connecting physically with people so much, especially now, because I obviously connect a lot with my team, but the famous coffee, moment where you're just walking around and you meet with someone from product that maybe you don't have a day-to-day interaction, and then you're talking to them. That is something that I'm a very social guy, so I really miss that.
Me too, and 90% of the time I work with a whiteboard, so yeah. I just need 3 other people next to me and whiteboarding, and yeah, that's me.
Look, we're going like super high up and super hype. Now I have to ask you the not so hyped question, which is, again, because of the space that you're working in doesn't mean that you have the crystal ball. I understand, but how do we manage? And this is kind of the last question for me to start closing this conversation. How do we set that boundary between workplace, home, shopping, life, work-life balance when now everything is so mixed up? Where do you guys see that going? And especially with the people that you're working, how are they starting to think about this?
It's a good question. I don't know if it's an individual thing or if it's something that should be taken care of at a top. It's a good question. Like, I don't think I have the right answer, because I don't know what's good and what's bad. If you ask me today, I feel that my boundaries are not good at all. It's not with my family. I spend a lot of time with my family and I love that. But with my personal addiction to my phone and always being buying things or feeling that I can buy, and I'm excited about stuff that I don't need. And so that is a big problem. And that's why designing spaces, digital and people in a way that's a bit more sustainable. And sustainable doesn't necessarily mean using less power or energy or water or concrete, but also like putting people in a place that's better for their mental health is actually something to take into consideration. Actually, I should thank you for that question, because it's going to make me think. I realized that I haven't been thinking about it enough. So yeah, that connectedness and everything connected and interconnected might have big challenges on boundaries. Then there is ethical like notions. Who's making that decision, and how do you make those decisions? But if I think about it, Facebook has designed an amazing product that got a lot of people addicted. It was not made like that on purpose, and I don't think anyone had bad intention. Now, what do we do with it is the question. And I do have my personal opinion on that. So it makes me feel that, yeah, sometimes you just disconnect yourself from the notion of responsibility. Oh, I'm going to design something, and then it's up to people to decide how they want to use it. There is responsibility. So thank you for asking the question. And sorry for not being able to have a more precise and firm answer, but I'd rather be honest than something smart, if I can.
I love it. Nico, anything else that I should have asked you, or that you feel that we could share as a closing idea?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground. No, I think as I was finishing, it's also like when you give a talk, or when people give a talk about their expertise on something, it feels that, yeah, you know everything about everything. I think it's interesting that learning about a topic to be able to actually provide opinions and inform opinion is very interesting, but also finding those boundaries within your own capability and knowledge is very important. And at the moment, I'm learning a lot of people with a lot of great opinions about everything. And I think it would be great for us to just focus on what we really know, because I'm really interested in people's expertise on many topics, but I'm also very annoyed about people giving their opinion about stuff that they don't really know. So yeah, that's my conclusion, and I hope I'm sticking to what I know. And that's why there was a moment during that interview where I was telling you, that part is not something that I'm really familiar with. So I'd rather focus on what I am, and I hope I'm true to what I'm asking other people to say.
It's a great approach. I'm really thankful for your time, for your honesty, for your energy. I think it's been a fabulous talk. We've gone a bit over time from what we expected originally, but I think it was completely worth it. So Nico, I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
And thank you for all the other interviews and the events that you guys are organizing, because I'm a big follower, and I hope that I'm going to be as useful to the other than the other have been useful to me. So thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
You will, Nico. Thank you. And I hope to have you hopefully maybe a second time. We'll see.
Pleasure.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.